I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to hold a grudge. My name's Nolan, I'm 27 now, but this all started back when I had just turned 25. At the time, I was in that weird transitional phase of life. Not quite where I wanted to be, but definitely not lost either. I had a decent job doing backend development for a logistics startup, remote, flexible hours, decent pay. Nothing flashy, but it paid the bills and gave me space to think about my next move. I wasn't posting Instagram stories from Bali or buying overpriced coffee every day, but I was content. And sometimes, that's enough. Or at least, it should have been. But when you're the quiet one in a loud family, people tend to forget you exist. Or worse, they remember just enough to leave you out. I grew up in a house full of strong personalities. My mom, June, is a relentless organizer, the kind of woman who turns every birthday into a full-blown itinerary and expects RSVP texts for Sunday dinner. My dad, Rob, was always kind of checked out, worked in construction management, old-school dude, believed in providing but not much else. My younger brother, Chase, is the golden child. Always has been. He's the funny one, the loud one, the athletic one, the life of the party. Growing up, he was the one getting standing ovations at school plays, even when his singing made people wince. My job was usually to sit in the third row, clap politely, and make sure Grandma didn't trip on the stairs. Chase and I weren't close, but we weren't enemies either. Just different. He was always moving fast, while I preferred to observe. He made friends in an instant. I made them slowly, and they stuck longer. But the family never really saw that. They saw Chase's trophies, his outgoing charm, his social media influence, and just assumed that I'd be fine on my own. "You've always been so independent," Mom would say, like it was a compliment. Like it was an excuse to not include me. The cracks had always been there, but I didn't start noticing how deep they ran until the spring before Chase's college graduation. He was finishing up at a big-name university in California. I won't say which one, but let's just say it was the kind of school where the sweatshirts alone cost more than my monthly groceries. The family had been buzzing about it for months. The ceremony, the celebrations, the big Chase is making it moment. Group texts were filled with jokes about what everyone would wear, what hotel they were booking, which Airbnb was closest to the beach. I figured plans were being made. I figured, like always, I'd get the details eventually. I didn't. One day, I opened Instagram and saw a post from my cousin Bella, a photo of boarding passes tucked into her passport. Caption: Chase's big week. I paused. Wait. What? A few more scrolls later, I saw my uncle standing next to his wife at an airport bar, clinking glasses. Then came a story from my Aunt Lisa, showing a pile of matching family t-shirts that said, Team Chase, Graduation 2023. I felt my stomach drop. Was this happening now? I texted my mom. Me. Hey, when are you guys flying out for Chase's graduation? Mom, oh, we're already here. Just got in yesterday. Sorry, I thought you had work or something. Me. I work remotely. Mom. Right. Well, we didn't want to bother you. Figured you'd be too busy anyway. That little emoji did something to me. Not the full breakdown. Not yet. But the kind of slow-building anger that starts in your chest and makes your fingers tingle. I sat there staring at the screen for a while, trying to make it make sense. Was this an oversight? A mistake? Surely someone would have asked if I was coming. Surely there had been a message thread I'd missed, an email I'd accidentally deleted. So I did the thing no one wants to do. I went looking for receipts. Group chat? I was in it. But looking back through the messages, I realized there were side threads, private ones, cousins-only ones, sibling ones. I wasn't in any of them. In the main group, all I could find was a vague, "Can't wait for Chase's big day" post from 3 months earlier, which I had responded to with a simple thumbs up. That was it. No dates, no invites, no hotel links. Nothing. I tried not to overthink it. I really did. I told myself maybe they thought I was too busy. Maybe they just assumed I'd say no. But when I saw the family photo a few days later, all of them on the beach in their matching shirts, holding little banners that spelled out, "We love you, Chase," I felt something sharp and cold settle in my chest. There was my mom, my dad, my brother, my cousins, even my uncle who lived 2 states away. Everyone smiling. Everyone there. Everyone but me. I didn't say anything. I liked the post. I double-tapped it like some stranger who stumbled across a stranger's joy. No comment, no message. Just a silent acknowledgement that I saw it. And that they didn't see me. I didn't answer when Chase called the next day. I let it go to voicemail. He left a short message. Hey bro, don't know if you're around. But, thanks for the support. Wish you were here. Talk soon. He sounded half awkward, half guilty. Like maybe he'd realized I wasn't coming just a little too late. Later that week, I finally got a text from my mom. Mom, hope you're not upset. It all came together kind of fast. Next time, okay? Next time. Like they'd forgotten to pick up eggs at the store. Like I was some optional side dish at a family barbecue. I didn't respond. I just let the silence hang there. Because what do you even say to that? I started noticing the pattern after that. Birthdays that came and went with generic HBD messages. Group photos from family events I never knew were happening. A new family WhatsApp group I wasn't added to until someone must have realized I was missing and quietly slipped me in. 2 weeks later. It wasn't one moment. It was 1,000 little ones. A slow drip of being excluded, overlooked, deprioritized. And every time I try to rationalize it, they're just busy. Maybe it was a mistake. Don't make a big deal out of nothing. I felt a little more hollow inside. Like maybe I really was just forgettable. Invisible. I didn't bring it up. I didn't start a fight. But something in me shifted that year. I stopped reaching out. Stopped sending check-ins. Stopped offering to help plan birthdays. Stopped reacting to their stories. I backed out of the family Christmas exchange, citing work. I declined the invite to our annual summer cabin trip. Not that I was really expected, anyway. And then one day, I was just gone. No announcement. No drama. Just radio silence. A full year passed like that. Then, something happened that pulled me back into the family orbit, whether I liked it or not. And this time, I wasn't just the quiet one in the corner. This time, I had something they didn't know about. Something they wouldn't see coming. But that's where it really begins. It's funny how silence makes people uncomfortable. At first, when I stopped showing up or replying, nobody really said anything. Maybe they assumed I was just busy again, like they always claimed. Or maybe they thought I was being dramatic, sulking over missing a trip they never invited me to. But as weeks stretched into months, the text slowed. The phone calls stopped. No one checked in, not even on my birthday. I turned 26 that July. No calls. No cards. No happy birthday message from my parents. Not even a recycled Facebook post. The only acknowledgement I got was from my coworker Marin, who messaged me on Slack. Hey Nolan, hope you're doing something fun today. HBD. That message hit harder than I expected. I just stared at it for a while, then closed my laptop. I took myself out for a late dinner that night. Steak, bourbon, cheesecake, and tipped the waitress 50%. When she smiled and said, "Happy birthday, by the way," I almost teared up. That was the moment it truly sunk in. My family didn't forget me. They just didn't care enough to remember. But I wasn't going to chase after people who couldn't bother to send a 2-word text. So I doubled down. I started drawing boundaries where there were none before. I muted the family group chats. Stopped reacting to their updates. Every time I saw a family brunch or a movie night on my cousin's story, I reminded myself not to care. They didn't miss me when I wasn't there. Why should I miss them? Meanwhile, my life, the part no one cared to ask about, was changing. I'd spent the better part of the year quietly building something. After years of freelancing and bouncing between startup contracts, I finally landed a massive client in the e-commerce space. They loved my work, signed a long-term retainer, and within 6 months, I had more projects than I could handle. So I brought on 2 former colleagues, then a third. Before I knew it, I had a small team, a brand name, and an LLC. I never told anyone in my family. Not because I was trying to hide it, but because they never asked. Then came Thanksgiving. It had been over a year since Chase's graduation trip. I hadn't seen anyone in person since before that, hadn't spoken to my mom or dad since spring. I figured I'd be left off the invite list again, which was fine. I was planning to stay in, maybe cook something myself, maybe order in. Quiet, peaceful. But 3 days before the holiday, I got a text from Mom. "Mom, hi honey. Hope you're doing well. We'd love to see you at the house for Thanksgiving this year. Everyone's coming. Dinner's at 4. Let me know." I stared at the message for a long time. No apology. No acknowledgement of the silent year. Just a cheerful invite like we'd spoken yesterday. I didn't answer right away. I honestly didn't know how I felt. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Another part, the stubborn one, wanted to show up, to see if anyone would even act like anything had changed. In the end, curiosity won out. I said I'd come. Thanksgiving Day was cloudy, cold, and tense. I pulled up to my parents' house around 3:45 p.m. Same place I grew up in. Pale blue siding, cracked driveway, the same chipped welcome mat with the faded letters. But as I walked in, something immediately felt off. There was no Nolan, or hey, look who's here. Just murmurs from the kitchen and laughter from the living room. My mom spotted me first. She came over with a wine glass in hand and air-kissed my cheek. You made it. I wasn't sure if you would. Her smile was strained. Her eyes flicked over my coat, like she expected me to be holding flowers or wine or something. I said I'd come. I replied flatly. She nodded. Well, we're just about to sit down. Chase is carving the turkey. He's gotten so good at it. Go say hi. I walked toward the dining room, and that's when I saw it. The table was already full. Not, we'll scoot over, kind of full. I mean, every single seat was taken. My uncle, aunt, cousins, grandparents, even Chase's new girlfriend, a girl I'd never met who was sipping Pinot Grigio like she owned the place. And there at the head of the table, in Dad's old chair, sat Chase, beaming like he was hosting the Oscars. He spotted me and waved. Yo, Nolan, you came. Then he turned back to the turkey, mid-slice. I stood there awkwardly for a second before Mom breezed past me, frowning. Oh shoot, I thought we had one more chair. Hold on. She glanced around, then clapped her hands. Can someone grab the folding chair from the garage? No one moved. Finally, my 15-year-old cousin sighed and went to get it. They cleared a spot for me, at the very corner of the table, half in the hallway. No placemat, no silverware. I had to use a paper napkin while everyone else had the nice linen ones. It was humiliating. Dinner passed in a haze. They talked about Chase's new job, some marketing thing at a firm downtown, and how bright his future looked. My dad joked about buying him a condo. My uncle offered him a contact at a venture capital firm. Everyone gushed. No one asked me a single question. Not about work. Not about my life. Not even, how have you been? The final blow came when my mom announced the annual family photo. Let's get one with all the kids and parents. Same spot as always. Everyone shuffled out to the backyard, laughing and adjusting their coats. I hung back, unsure. When they were all lined up, Mom looked at me and said, Nolan, would you mind taking the photo? You've got that nice phone. I stared at her. For a second, I thought she was joking. But no, she was serious. My brother's girlfriend stood right next to him, arms wrapped around his waist like she'd always been part of the family. I wasn't even considered part of the picture. So I took the photo. I held up the phone, clicked the shutter, and watched their smiling faces freeze on the screen. Perfect, happy, complete. Without me. That was the moment. The breaking point. Something inside me snapped, but not in an angry, explosive way. It was quieter than that. Colder. A final confirmation of something I'd been trying not to believe for a long time. I didn't matter to them. Not really. I drove home that night without saying goodbye. No one noticed I'd left. And for a few days, I just existed in that quiet. Let it sink in. Let the weight of it settle around me. Then something weird happened. I got a LinkedIn message from a woman named Claire Tanaka. She said she was the director of community partnerships at Chase's company. She wanted to verify some backend logistics Chase had apparently outsourced, but the name on the vendor list was mine. I blinked at the message, confused. I hadn't done any work for his company. I wrote back politely. Hi Claire, I think there's been a mistake. I haven't contracted with your company before. Maybe you meant a different Nolan. Her reply came fast. She apologized, said it was odd, and that the invoice was linked to a Nolan Devlin LLC with my exact business address. My blood ran cold. I opened the invoice. My brother had submitted a backend module built using a stripped-down version of my framework, something I developed and copyrighted. It wasn't a direct copy, but it was clearly derivative. And the vendor name he used? Devlin Solutions. My company's old test shell, something I deprecated months ago, but never deleted. He didn't just steal my work. He forged a version of my company to do it. That was the betrayal. That was when the fog lifted and everything sharpened. I sat in the dark for a long time that night, reading the code. My comments, my naming conventions. I checked the metadata, time-stamped edits, file structure. It was mine. He'd accessed one of my early GitHub repositories, probably when we shared a laptop years ago. He'd repurposed the skeleton, rebranded it, and built it under a fake LLC using my name. And no one had thought to mention it to me. He hadn't asked, hadn't warned me, Hadn't even tried to hide it very well. Just assumed I'd never know. Assumed I'd stay quiet. Assumed, like the rest of the family, that I'd always be on the outside looking in. But I wasn't on the outside anymore. I was watching now. And for the first time, I wasn't just angry. I was ready. The first few days after discovering what Chase had done felt like free-falling through fog. I couldn't focus. I couldn't sleep. I'd open my laptop and just sit there, staring at the screen. Half of me was livid, fists clenched, jaw tight, adrenaline constantly simmering. The other half? Numb. Not from surprise, but from validation. As twisted as it sounds, part of me had been waiting for a moment like this. Something undeniable. Something that finally proved I wasn't being dramatic or paranoid or too sensitive. This was it. Concrete. Tangible. Theft. And not just theft of something material. This was creative, intellectual, personal. Chase hadn't just stolen my code. He'd stolen my work and wrapped it in a shiny bow, hoping to pass it off as his. Maybe to impress his boss. Maybe to get ahead faster. Maybe just because he thought he could. I kept replaying Thanksgiving in my head. The way he smiled at me across the table, joked about how I finally decided to show up, all while knowing what he'd done. It was bold, brazen, and somehow not even shocking. That was what hurt the most. I wanted to confront him. Badly. My hands itched to text him, to call him out, to drag this into the light and make him squirm. But I didn't. Something in me, maybe instinct, maybe spite, said wait. Don't react. Don't explode. Not yet. You only get one shot at this, so make it count. So I swallowed the fire and started documenting. I took screenshots of the invoice Chase had submitted. Saved copies of the code repository metadata. Pulled up my old GitHub logs to verify the original source material. Timestamps, commit notes, update history. Everything matched. Then I ran a search on the LLC name he'd used, and sure enough, he'd registered in Devlin Solutions as a sole proprietorship 2 months earlier. Same city, similar logo. Even the website he'd set up used a nearly identical layout to one of my early landing pages. I wasn't just angry now. I was insulted. He hadn't even bothered to be original. Around this time, Claire messaged me again. Hey Nolan, I talked to my team, and your name came up again on another invoice. I just want to double check you're not affiliated with Chase's vendor, because we're running a review next quarter. That was when I knew Chase had made this a pattern. And not just with one client. He was trying to build something, a portfolio, a resume, off my name. So I told her the truth. Politely. Professionally. I explained that I was not affiliated, that the name was deceptively similar to my real business, and that I was in the process of looking into potential IP violations. She was surprised, thanked me for my honesty, and said she'd escalated internally. And just like that, the spark was lit. But here's the thing no one tells you about moments like these. Revenge, or justice, or whatever you want to call it, doesn't feel satisfying right away. Not when you're still carrying the weight of being forgotten for so long. I still felt hollow. Small. Like part of me was broken in a place I didn't know how to reach. And then came the worst week of that year. My biggest client, the e-commerce one who had basically bankrolled my agency, pulled out. Not because of anything I'd done. They were pivoting, changing platforms, merging with another company. Just business. But the timing gutted me. Suddenly, I was staring at numbers that didn't add up. My team was still on payroll, my expenses were real, and my runway had evaporated overnight. I spent 2 days in bed. Didn't eat much. Just kept checking my inbox, hoping something would come through. A contract, an offer, a lifeline. Nothing did. That Friday, I almost called my mom. I don't know why. Maybe I just wanted to hear a familiar voice. But then I remembered the way she'd handed me that paper napkin at Thanksgiving. Like I didn't belong at her table. Like I was the spare part she didn't know what to do with. So I didn't call. Instead, I poured a whiskey, sat in front of my laptop, and opened a blank document. I wrote 3 words at the top. Start from zero. That night, I made a decision. No more waiting. No more hoping someone would throw me a rope. I would build something again. And this time, I'd do it smarter. The next few months were brutal. I cut back expenses. Let 2 contractors go, hardest calls I've ever made. Paused all outbound projects. Stripped my life down to the essentials. Eat, sleep, code. I revamped my service offering. Narrowed it to one niche. API integration and custom backend systems for small businesses. Rebranded everything. New logo, new copy, new value prop. Launched a targeted campaign using the last $800 I had in my marketing budget. And then I waited. The first client came through in mid-January. A local delivery startup who needed help with real-time tracking and order sync. It wasn't huge money, but it was enough to float me another month. Then came another, and another. By March, I had 5 clients on retainer. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't viral. But it was mine. I started waking up excited again. Started eating better. Sleeping better. I even joined a local co-working space just to feel human again. That's where I met Amara, another solo founder working on a mobile app for mental health journaling. We started chatting between coffee breaks, eventually partnered on a small project, and then kept talking after hours. She didn't care that I wasn't the funny one or the loudest guy in the room. She listened, asked questions, remembered things I said. I hadn't realized how much that mattered to me until someone finally did it. And slowly, like actually slowly, not some montage moment, I started to feel like myself again. By summer, I had rebuilt enough to hire back one of my contractors. The business was leaner, more focused, and more profitable than before. And I'd finally trademarked my company name. Properly. No more shells. No more overlooked details. But I hadn't forgotten what Chase did. I hadn't forgotten that while I was rebuilding from nothing, he was still out there, submitting stolen frameworks and fake invoices under a name he had no right to use. And it wasn't just a personal betrayal anymore. It was a legal problem. Because while I'd been rebuilding, I'd also been quietly collecting more evidence. Remember Claire? She followed up again in July. Turns out Chase had submitted yet another backend module to a different department. This one included code I hadn't made public. Code that had only existed in my private dev environment. Which meant he either had copies from years ago, or he had access to something now. That's when I remembered something else. An old Google Drive folder I'd used to back up projects during college. I hadn't touched it in years, but I logged in, and sure enough, there it was. Shared with one other email address. Chase's. The access had been granted back when I was helping him build a portfolio site, something he barely even used. I'd forgotten to revoke access. He hadn't forgotten to exploit it. Now I had him. Emails, access logs, timestamps, client invoices, trademark documentation, source code history. Enough to prove not just plagiarism, but willful deception. But I still didn't reach out. Not yet. Because something had shifted in me during that long, hard year of silence. I wasn't reacting from emotion anymore. I wasn't chasing validation. I didn't need an apology. I wanted something else. Not just justice. A reckoning. One he wouldn't see coming. One that would arrive the same way his betrayal had. Quietly, professionally, and devastatingly effective. So I sat down one night, opened a new document, and began drafting a letter. Not to Chase. To his company. To their legal department. To their compliance officer. And to the board member whose name had appeared on every project Chase submitted. But just before I sent it, I got a notification. A wedding announcement. Chase and his girlfriend were getting married. And guess who didn't get an invite? They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but I think people forget how long it takes to properly freeze. I wasn't the same guy I had been when Chase stole from me. That Nolan, the one who stood in the corner of the Thanksgiving photo, the one who took the picture instead of being in it, the one who quietly left and hoped someone would notice, that version of me was long gone. What replaced him was sharper, patient, focused. So when the wedding announcement hit my inbox, a glossy, over-designed email with a header that read Chase and Madison's Forever Starts Now. I didn't delete it. I read every word. Slowly, carefully. Then I clicked through to the wedding site. It was a spectacle, of course. Custom font. Soft acoustic playlist auto-playing on load. A countdown timer to the big day. A curated photo carousel of their love story. Engagement photos on cliffs. Matching sweaters at the pumpkin patch. Silly black and white shots in a photo booth. And then, down at the bottom, the guest list. They'd made it public, probably without realizing the privacy implications. That's when I saw it. Every single cousin, every uncle and aunt, every second-tier family member who hadn't spoken to me in years. Even Claire. Yes, that Claire from Chase's company was listed under the Madison's Friends from Work section. But me? Nowhere. No RSVP. No placeholder. Not even a pending. It was intentional. Deliberate. The same way everything else had been. I didn't get angry. I smiled. Because this wasn't just a party. It was an opportunity. And I had spent the last year preparing for one. The first thing I did was quietly initiate the legal side of things. I wasn't suing, not yet. But I wanted to ensure every piece was airtight if that day came. I contacted an IP attorney, a sharp woman named Priya, who came highly recommended from a colleague in the startup space. She didn't blink when I laid everything out. The stolen code, the reused infrastructure, the forged LLC, the deceptive invoices. She took notes, nodded a lot, and then said something that stuck with me. Your brother didn't just steal your work. He used your identity to build his credibility. This isn't just about copyright. This is about professional impersonation. The way she said it sent a chill through me. Professional impersonation. Not just theft. Not just plagiarism. He had pretended to be me, or, at least, used my name and worked to convince people he was capable of what I had built. That was a different kind of betrayal. A deeper one. Priya advised me to collect everything and wait for a leverage point. If we file now, he'll lawyer up through the company, she said. You'll be in a long, expensive battle. But if you wait for the right moment, something public, something high stakes, you'll have all the power. The wedding was shaping up to be that moment. Not because I wanted to ruin his special day. I couldn't care less about the catered appetizers or the flower arrangements. But because of what came after. You see, Chase wasn't just getting married. He was launching something. I found out a week later, completely by accident. A friend of a friend tagged Chase in a post on LinkedIn. Congrats to Chase Devlin on the upcoming launch of Devlin Sync, the latest evolution in API backend solutions. So excited to see this go live after the wedding. My jaw clenched. Devlin Sync. Even the name was a punch to the gut. Clean. Professional. Suspiciously similar to a sandbox framework I developed and never released publicly. One I'd only shared in beta with 2 clients under NDA. It was still in testing. How did he even? I went digging. Sure enough, Chase had slapped together a new website for Devlin Sync. It was clean, slick, all fluff and buzzwords. Seamless backend integration. Cloud-first architecture. Redefined sync protocols. And the demo? Was mine. He'd used my old framework again. Cleaned it up. Gave it a new paint job. But under the hood, it was still my code. With all the same architecture quirks and internal naming conventions I'd been using for years. Anyone who looked close enough would see it. He was planning to unveil it at his wedding. That was his real celebration. The marriage was just the dress rehearsal. His site even had a press page scheduled to go live the same day, with links to PR blasts and influencer endorsements. That was the leverage point, and I wasn't going to waste it. So I began the setup. First, I called in favors. Remember Marin, my coworker from the old logistics startup? She had since moved on to a fintech accelerator. I asked if she could take a look at Devlin Sync's backend, just from a user-facing demo. She poked around for an hour, then called me, laughing. Nolan, this is your code. Like, your code. I recognized it immediately. This is the puzzle piece model you showed me last year, right? I nodded. He's launching it under his name. She whistled. That's bold. Want me to run it through our internal auditing team? Yes, I said, quietly. Then I reached out to someone I hadn't spoken to in a while, my old mentor, Derek. Derek used to be my boss at my very first dev job. Gruff, brutally honest, but smart. He ran a boutique consulting firm now and still had connections at a few tech publications. I sent him an email with a short summary and asked for a call. We talked for 2 hours. He didn't say much during the first half. Just listened. Asked a few questions. Then, finally, you've got him by the throat. The only question is when you want to squeeze. I asked if he could help amplify the story when the time came. Not maliciously, but publicly. Truthfully. He said he'd handle it. Then I started crafting my message. Not a tweet. Not a post. A statement. A clear, concise breakdown of what had happened. Dates, code comparisons, side-by-side screenshots, file histories. I wanted it to be undeniable. No drama. No name-calling. Just facts. Facts so well documented that anyone reading would come to the conclusion on their own. It took me a week to write it. Another few days to have Priya review it for legal clarity. Then I scheduled it. The morning of the wedding. 7 a.m. sharp. But that wasn't the only part of the plan. I also sent an anonymous tip to the compliance officer at Chase's company. Included the GitHub logs, the website metadata, and a few choice screenshots of Chase's Devlin Sync files referencing my proprietary function names, ones that had never been public. I watched the email go out, heartbeat steady, and then I waited. The night before the wedding, I got one last surprise. My mom called. I almost didn't answer. But something in me, that leftover sliver of sun, of hope, picked up. Hey, Mom. Nolan, she said, her voice unusually stiff. I just wanted to let you know. I'm sorry you didn't get an invite. I blinked. Yeah, me too. It wasn't personal, she added quickly. It was Madison's list. They were trying to keep it small. Just close family and friends. I laughed quietly. So, I don't count as close family. She didn't answer that. Instead, she said, I hope you're doing okay. I heard from Aunt Lisa that you're running some kind of tech business now. I closed my eyes. I've been running it for 3 years, Mom. Oh, she said. Well, that's nice. We sat in silence for a few seconds. Then she added, Chase is really nervous about tomorrow. I hope you can be happy for him, even if you're not there. I almost responded. Almost explained everything. But I didn't. Because tomorrow would speak for itself. When she hung up, I sat there for a long time. Thinking. Not about revenge. Not even about justice. Just about how far I'd come. And how much farther I was willing to go. The morning of the wedding arrived quietly, just like I planned. I was already awake before my alarm. No nerves. No hesitation. I brewed my coffee slowly, savoring the calm, then opened my laptop and logged in. 7 a.m. sharp. I hit publish. The post went live on Medium, but I didn't stop there. It was mirrored to LinkedIn, where I had a steadily growing professional network and cross-linked to my company's official blog. The title was simple. When Your Work is Stolen by Family. A cautionary tale about intellectual property and trust. It started with the facts. No emotion. Just timelines, project names, and verifiable data. I laid out how I had built the original backend framework over 2 years. Included screenshots of commit logs, code architecture comparisons, metadata showing timestamps months before Chase had registered his LLC. I linked to GitHub audit trails, my original beta demo, even client emails referencing the project long before Devlin Sync ever existed. Then, delicately, I described how someone, a relative, had copied my work, launched it under their own brand, and submitted it to their employer as original code. I didn't mention Chase's name once. I didn't have to. The code was unmistakably mine. The naming conventions. The exact architecture style. Even the same typo in one of the helper functions. A tiny misspelling in a comment I'd made late at night 1 year ago. He'd copied it so blindly that he hadn't even caught that. It spread faster than I expected. Within 2 hours, my post had been picked up by a developer forum where I'd once been active. They pinned it to their front page. By lunchtime, it was trending on LinkedIn's tech feed under IP theft and startup ethics. I watched the views tick up. 1, 000. 3, 500. 9, 200. Then I started getting messages. The first few were from fellow developers, offering support. Then came a few reporters. Then, around 11:30 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Derek, my mentor. Derek, just saw your piece. Poised, professional, lethal. Heads are already turning. At 12:15 p.m., I got a call from an unknown number. It was Claire. She sounded flustered. Nolan, I just read your post. We've had a situation here. Compliance flagged Chase's entire body of work. Legal is pulling everything now. I kept my voice even. That's probably wise. She paused. We had no idea. Honestly, I feel sick. I'm sorry. I appreciate that, I said simply. An hour later, I checked the wedding site. The press page was gone. The launch page for Devlin Sync. Offline. Chase was still at his own wedding, tuxedo on, posing for photos, beaming in every shot, completely unaware that his empire was crumbling in real time. The ceremony went on as planned. I know because a cousin live-streamed it. I watched for a moment, sipping my second cup of coffee. Watched my family smile and clap and pretend everything was perfect. But it didn't last long. The fallout started before the reception even ended. Someone, probably from Chase's own company, must have forwarded the article to the wedding planner or one of the vendors. I started getting messages from mutuals saying something was happening at the venue. A few cousins who still followed me on Instagram sent vague, wide-eyed DMs like, "Dude, what did you do? Your brother's losing it." They stopped the music during the cocktail hour? I didn't answer. I just watched. By 6 p.m., Chase's company had scrubbed all social mentions of Devlin Sync. Their head of engineering, a guy named Marco, posted a short, formal statement on LinkedIn. We are currently investigating reports of code duplication and unauthorized use of proprietary frameworks submitted by one of our junior staff members. We take intellectual property violations seriously and have temporarily suspended the launch of Devlin Sync pending legal review. Not long after that, Chase's name disappeared from their employee directory. Gone. Just like that. But the real blow didn't come until the following Monday. That's when I got an email from the CEO of the company. Not some intern, not a legal bot, but the actual CEO. She apologized profusely, said they were horrified, that they'd had no idea, that they were grateful I had come forward professionally instead of going nuclear. Then she said the words I didn't expect. If you're open to it, we'd like to discuss a consulting relationship with you directly. Our team still needs the functionality that was promised. And from what I understand, it was your work all along. I sat with that email for a long time. And when I responded, I was careful, gracious, calm, professional. We had our first meeting that Friday. Meanwhile, the Devlin family group chat, once so full of memes, emojis, and proud of you, Chase gifs, was a war zone. Someone added me back to the thread, probably out of panic. It was the first time I'd been included in over a year. I watched as the messages rolled in. Mom, can someone explain what's going on? Uncle Ray, is this real? Chase, call me now. Cousin Bella, this is a disaster, OMG. Chase, it's not what it looks like. I'm handling it. Aunt Lisa, handling it? You committed fraud? Dad, we need to talk. Mom, Nolan, please don't do this to your brother. That one stopped me. I stared at it for a full minute. And then I typed exactly one sentence. He did this to himself. Then I left the group. Again. For good this time. The silence that followed was blissful. A few days later, I got a call from my dad. I didn't pick up. He left a message, voice low, tired. I'm sorry, son. I didn't know. I should have paid more attention. I didn't think something like this could happen. I didn't call back. There was nothing left to say, but I did listen to it twice, just to hear the regret in his voice. Word eventually spread to the rest of the extended family. Some tried to stay neutral. A few sent me messages of support, distant cousins, old friends, even my grandma, who said, I never liked the way they treated you. I'm glad you stood up for yourself, sweetheart. I saved that one. As for Chase, he tried to reach out, texted, emailed, called from an unknown number, left a voicemail that started with, look, I know I messed up, and ended with, but you didn't have to ruin my life. I deleted it. Because the truth is, I didn't ruin his life. He built it on a lie. All I did was pull back the curtain. And in the months that followed, my own life began to look different, brighter. The consulting gig with Chase's old company turned into a 6-month contract. That led to 2 more referrals. My agency grew steadily, quietly, on my terms. Marin and I started co-hosting tech meetups. Amara and I started seeing each other more seriously. I moved into a new apartment with more sunlight, more plants, more space to breathe. And for the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't just surviving. I was winning. Not out of spite. Not to prove anything. Just because I finally believed I could. It's strange how one family photo, one missed invitation, one empty seat at a table, can unravel everything you thought you knew. But sometimes, that unraveling is exactly what you need. Because what comes after is entirely yours to weave. And mine was strong, steady, unforgiving, and unforgettable.